Everyone for being here. As folks know, today we had multiple threats going to different schools in the New Haven region and across not only the New Haven public school system, but Amistad School as well on Dixwell Avenue. The schools that were mentioned in these different threats were Wilbur Cross High School, Hill House, Career, Co-op, Riverside, Conti, and Edgewood School. The threats to different schools came in different ways. One was by phone, some were by social media, one was by email. And the chief is going to get into details on the different schools and the progress that the police department has made to identify people involved. Cross and Hill House, as folks know, were given early release. The other schools, we had an increase in police presence to make sure that they were safe. Amistad was also given an early release. At this time, and this is very important, at this time, we have found that we have not found that any of the threats are credible. As a parent, I say that to parents out there, at this time we have not found that any of the threats are credible. We take things very, very seriously, which is why police department responded to, in particular, Wilbur Cross in the morning, but then quickly when we got the other threats to the other schools, and cherish the value of the safety of our young people and people that are working in the schools. Wanted to thank the New Haven Police Department, New Haven Public Schools, and in particular the families, the teachers, paraprofessionals, all the school workers and students for being flexible to a very traumatic situation. Before I hand it over to the Chief, I want to be clear that when someone makes this kind of threat, it is illegal. You will be arrested. We will find you. And the police department has been working with our partners in law enforcement nonstop today to identify the persons that have been involved in these threats. It creates a significant amount of trauma in a community that is already quite traumatized. With everything going on over these past 2 years, with the shooting incidents in the school in Michigan, this is something that not only does our community not need, but it creates great harm, and we will ensure that you are held accountable if you end up doing this to our public school system. I'm going to hand it over to Chief Dominguez.
Thank you, Mayor. So many of you have known the incident began today at approximately 8:51 when we received a 911 call from the school reporting that an individual with a gun was in the area and attempting to make entry or making entry into the school. So that immediately yielded, we have an SRO there, Officer Aponte. He immediately was given that information from dispatch, and he was able to notify the principal at the time and put the school in lockdown immediately. So we're very lucky that we had the SRO there, and he did a great job. He did exactly what he's supposed to do, and the school went down into lockdown immediately and per their procedures. From there, we did have a big police presence there, numerous officers, plainclothes, to be able to assess what was going on, and then also once the decision was made that the school was going to have early dismissal, to be able to carefully make sure that there was no threat that would be leaving the school with the rest of the students, and that we were able to get the students safely either onto the bus or to their parents. So that, while it did take several hours, that was very, it was done well. Obviously, we're always looking at ways that, how could we do something better? So we'll be, working with the public schools to do, just to kind of think about what we could do better, because we always want to make sure our students are safe. At the same time as the police presence at the school, we did see a social media post that came up unrelated to the first call. The social media post said that they were going to shoot up Cross. So that was two things that happened. And then from there, the social media post began to add different schools with the same handle, the same Instagram, we believe, handle, posting different schools, Hill House, Co-op, all the schools that the mayor had named earlier, which required our police resources to go to other schools within the city and make sure that they were also safe. So the police department overall, the patrol division, the investigative services division, Intel, has been working all day to attempt to identify who is responsible. So we were able to get the caller in to the police department and interview her, and she has been arrested. She's been arrested for a breach of peace first and interfering. So not for that, she did say that she fabricated the story. her fabrication and the call is what caused the social media posts to begin. The police department has been able to identify one of the individuals who was making those posts for 3 of the schools. That individual is a juvenile, and he resides in a different state. We have identified him. Law enforcement in that state has made contact with him, and an arrest warrant will be forthcoming from our police department. There are other posts that we are still investigating, and also one email that was sent out to one of the schools. All of those we are doing what we can with our partners, with search warrants, with finding out where each post and each email is originating from, and getting information for the person who owns that email or phone number or social media handle. So I want to commend the work of the officers. In just a matter of hours, we have been able to say that this is not we do not believe that these are credible threats. Also, we have been able to make an arrest, and we know that at least in this case, it was fabricated, and it has caused undue alarm and trauma for the school, for the community, for the parents, for the teachers. We did have a meeting afterwards once Cross was cleared, just to answer some questions from just a police point of view. But it is very stressful. I can't imagine having to be in the school and being called, this is a real lockdown, this is not a drill. So for everybody involved. I want to turn it over to Dr. White, and then we can come back and answer questions.
Good evening. First off, I do want to thank New Haven Police Department for their work in bringing this matter to a close, especially to Officer Aponte, who's one of the Wilbercross family, who's always been stationed there. Also thanking the faculty and students of Wilbercross for handling the situation as best they could. And because it is such a stressful situation, we are providing social emotional supports at Cross, as well as Hill House and all the schools that have been named, so that there will be supports for faculty and students to deal with concerns that are had. I was on site at the time in the building of the lockdown, so I recognize the stress that this can cause and what needs to be done so that we can rebuild and strengthen our kids to continue their education. It's a tough situation, but we want to make sure students and faculty are safe first and foremost, and that they're able to learn and go forward from there. Thank you.
Any questions from folks?
Chief, can you talk about whether this person was a student at Wilbercross who made the phone call to the police department?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, they were.
Female?
Yes. Juvenile.
Okay, and the female who made this call was arrested. And then that kind of started that ripple effect. How does this person in another state all of a sudden see what's going on? Are they connected in some way?
So the investigation is still ongoing to see if they're connected in any way, or if this individual with the social media post are connected to any of the other towns, either Hamden, the Eli Whitney case today. So we're working closely with Hamden and any other town that has something similar, maybe with a similar post, because the handles of social media can be changed easily. So we are working just to see how connected these potentially can be, and we'll move forward.
And you're saying that all these threats, so just so that we've got this correct, that this girl who's a student calls 911 fabricating this story, and then that started a ripple effect that stemmed from one Instagram handle that just kept adding the schools right after that?
We have one Instagram handle that we are connected to, possibly 3. So we have not connected to all 8 that are have potentially been named as threats. However, that's what we're working on to see through search warrants and things like that, to see if we're able to connect IP addresses or whatever through technology.
Chief, any other threats for tomorrow expected?
So we're going to we have had social media threats. We have had general threats. You will see an increase in presence at the schools that did have the threats. There will be an SRO at 4 of them, where there is the SRO normally, and then there will also be patrol vehicles with a police car at the schools all day. And then we're also going to try to supplement as many schools as we can with increased presence, even if they didn't have a threat, at dismissal, at arrival, either with the supervisor, with the district manager. Try to use our resources as best we can The Detective Bureau as well was out there helping us today, so that's an added resource, just to have just peace of mind for the parents who are sending their kids back to school.
What is the age of the student that was arrested?
17.
Can you run through the list of schools one more time, just round off that quickly?
Yeah, and I just want to clarify one of the questions that you asked. You know, we don't know if these incidents are connected. It's clear because last week there was incidents in Hamden as well. It appears that there's some copycat going on, but we don't know if there's any real linkage or if it's just people that are saying that's a great idea, I'm going to do that too. So I don't want anyone to think that there's any clear linkage between these incidents yet as the investigation's ongoing.
One in different towns.
Or in New Haven. Cross, Hill House, Career, Co-op, Riverside, Conti, Edgewood School, and Amistad School. I can give you the list afterwards if you want.
And this student who was arrested, this is the one that, sent out a call to the school saying that there was a gunman approaching the school?
Call 911.
Called 911 saying that there was a gunman approaching the school.
Yes.
Can you go over the consequences a little bit, just to give people an idea of kind of specifically what those consequences could be in case they do try to do a copycat, they can see exactly what could happen?
So this individual is being arrested for breach of peace first and interfering with police. And then I imagine that potentially Dr. White can talk about any consequences with the school as well. So, you know, there's criminal consequences and there's also consequences through the Board of Education.
Chief, oh, never mind, go ahead.
Yes, obviously, we can't go into details of the specific consequences, but everything from suspension through expulsion or possibilities in such instances.
Message, chief, to students that might be seeing this, and kind of to the mayor's point, this is like a copycat thing, that they're seeing the ripple effect that this is causing. Do you have a message to the community, specifically students who might see this and think, oh, I can do that?
Yes, I think that the work of the New Haven Police Department today, especially having the ability to use our federal partners, FBI, and our surrounding towns, shows that if you do make a threat like this, we are able to track down who the person responsible is. We will make an arrest because it is the safety of the children, but not just their physical safety, their emotional and their mental stability and well-being, that is important to us. And additionally, we definitely have reached far beyond just New Haven. So like I said, we do have our federal partners. This is an individual in another state. You know, there is some interstate kind of federal nexus that we could also be prosecuting with.
Does that mean it could be like not a felony since it's minor, but is that something that could be like?
So breach of peace first is a felony. So it's a felony because of it's specific after several years ago when it was changed due to threats of this nature to be able to hold an individual to higher standards for arrest.
Is she currently being detained by the police, or is she at home, or where is this individual who's been arrested?
She's a juvenile, so we're not going to go into that.
When the police department stretched thin, having to respond to all of these schools, is there any issue in responding to potentially other calls, having to call in additional resources?
So we did not need to do that. We were able to respond with a full presence to Cross today and also to Hill House, and we went to all the other schools. However, in a worst case scenario, yes, of course, we have things in place that if we needed to use mutual aid, we have, Yale University, we would call on our partners because it is important that we are able to answer calls for service, that we're also able to handle the school. So we did not need to do that. We do not think we would. We would call in everybody here as we did today. However, of course, safety is the first priority regardless. So if we needed the help, we would ask.
Would you mind, Chief, talking about the difficulty potentially in tracking these social media threats and how hard sometimes that can be?
So we were able to, we have, our detective bureau is fantastic with making sure that we immediately put out emergency, requests for these so that we're able to preserve some of the information. And then it is sometimes difficult depending on how an individual, what information is there. We only have what information is provided in order to receive. So yes, possibly, but we have a great group of detectives and officers who are doing the work, and we were definitely successful today.
And sometimes when they create a new handle, they don't have to input certain information that makes it more difficult?
Potentially, but I don't have enough information as how it's kind of evolving with the different handles just yet to be able to say that.
Did the student arrested give any reason for why she may have made that call?
The investigation is still ongoing at this time.
Can you share the state that was responsible supposedly for kind of the out-of-state activity?
Once we make an arrest, then we'll be able to share more information.
Does that complicate anything at all, or in terms of just getting everything together for the investigations?
We were able to quickly be able to call the other state and have law enforcement from that state to respond there and to be able to be working with us and having someone face-to-face down there. So it did not prove difficult in this case. I imagine in other places it could potentially, but we did have success in this incident.
And that person is also a juvenile?
Yes.
Out of state?
Yes.
That meeting that you had afterwards, was that with parents or was that, who was that with?
The staff of Cross.
Oh,
Yes.
And Dr. White, did you say you were in lockdown at Wilbur Cross this
Yes.
morning? Can you tell us a bit about what that was like, what you heard from students and teachers and other administrators?
Well, at the time we went into lockdown, of course, first thing is to get all people into safe areas. And then after that, of course, we had students with us. Some had concerns, obviously, about their safety. We did everything to alleviate concerns, and police were on scene almost instantly to assist. And then we worked from there to figure out what we needed to do next.
Dr. White, is expulsion on the table for the student who made this call?
Within our code of conduct, that could be a possibility. Again, there are various levels.
Thank you.